Are you planning a thru hike of the Appalachian Trail? Then I have 5 things that you should do before you start your thru hike. Hi guys, if you don't know me, I'm Audrey, known as Glow Stick on Trail. In 2018, I quit my job in Washington, D.C., thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine, and now I make videos for you guys because I'm still obsessed with my thru hike 3 years later. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're coming back to the channel again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your support. Without any further ado, let's get into these 5 things that you should do before you start your thru hike. Number 1, get in shape. Those mountains in Georgia or those mountains in Maine, depending on which way you're going, northbound or southbound, the mountains in Georgia and Maine both are super hard. I feel like especially everyone knows that Maine is really hard. It's one of the southern Maine especially is one of the hardest parts of the entire trail. But I feel like people don't talk enough about how difficult Georgia is. The mountains in Georgia are no joke, and they really don't believe in switchbacks in that state. So you will be doing yourself a big, big favor if you work on your fitness level with carrying a heavy backpack ahead of starting your hike. They say that it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get your trail legs once you're on trail. That's carrying a heavy backpack up and over mountains every single day for 4 to 6 weeks. And I really felt like that was true to my experience. I would say maybe 5 to 6 weeks in, I finally started hitting my stride and felt like, okay, I can do this. Whereas the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, I was so sore all the time. I was having knee pain. Oh my gosh, my muscles, they were so sore for so long. And I just kept thinking to myself, 4 to 6 weeks, my trail legs are gonna come in. My trail legs are gonna come in. And I was fairly active ahead of the trail. I started March 20th. So obviously that was the very, very beginning of spring, end of winter. So it's definitely harder to be in outdoorsy shape, hiking shape in the winter. But there are definitely things that I could have done to make my life easier. I could have walked around town with my heavy backpack, wearing my hiking boots. I was hiking on weekends. I was doing yoga, I was climbing, I was doing a lot of walking, but I just feel like there's nothing that prepares your body for backpacking and having to carry all of that extra weight than actually getting out there and doing it. So even if you can't hike with a backpack ahead of time, or maybe you can only do it every weekend or a couple times a month, that's okay, get out there and do it. But also take your backpack walking around town, because I really feel like you're using your muscles in such a different way when you have all that extra weight on you, as opposed to when you're just normally hiking or just walking around, that I think that it would be extremely helpful to get out and walk with a backpack ahead of time. So that's my best advice. And then I also noticed a lot of people had foot problems on the trail, and I never really did. And I would attribute that to, number 1, finding a pair of shoes that really worked for me. And number 2, climbing and yoga both require a lot of foot strength and flexibility. So I think that building up those muscles ahead of time probably really helped me out on the trail. But I mean, that's speculation. Who really knows? But I definitely was one of the lucky ones. And I do believe that I had pretty strong feet going into the trail. So yeah, get as physically fit as you can ahead of the trail. You will thank yourself, I promise. Number 2, go out on at least one practice backpacking trip, a little shakedown trip, if you will. Preferably go on multiple, but at the very least go on one. And do this so that you can see what it's gonna feel like to be out there. You're gonna see how heavy your backpack is when you're going up and down hills or mountains or whatever. You're gonna see what gear works for you and what doesn't. I would really recommend doing at least one of these trips in the rain and in the cold, preferably in cold rain, because there is a lot of rain on the AT, and a lot of it is cold. So get out there and see what it's really like, and see what gear works for you. Is it keeping you warm? Is it keeping you dry? What things are you using? What things are you not using? Can you get rid of those things that you're not using? If you go on, a few trips and you find there's something in your pack that you haven't used at all, that's probably a good indicator that you can leave that at home. You want to get your bag as light as possible while still having all the things that you need to be comfortable and in good mental and physical condition out there. But like, if there are things you don't need, get rid of that stuff. You don't want to be carrying that up and down those steep mountains, I promise. So yeah, get out and do some practice backpacking trips ahead of time. Number 3, get a shakedown from an experienced backpacker. This is where they'll take a look at all of your gear, all of the stuff that you're going to be carrying in your backpack, and they'll say, you don't need this item. Here's why. You don't need this item. Here's why. And they're going to take a bunch of your stuff out, and you're probably going to feel a little panicked about it, and you're going to be like, but I need that. Well, if you really do need it, it's okay. Like, they're not going to force you to get rid of something. But odds are they have experienced having these same types of extra things out on trail, and they know that to be happy out on trail, you don't need those things. And they also know that the heavier your backpack, probably the less happier you're going to be out on trail. I mean, I'm not saying you need to be like super ultra light or something. I'm certainly not. I like to be comfortable. I have a pillow. I have some other comfort items. I'm not anti-comfort item. I'm just anti-carrying things that you're not going to use or you're going to use very rarely, because my backpack was really heavy on the AT, especially at the very beginning when it was cold and I had my winter gear. And I just know how much of a struggle it was. And I've always been a hiker. So it was difficult for me, and I have always been a hiker. It's about the weight, carrying all that extra weight on you. So get some help from an experienced backpacker and listen to them when they say, you should get rid of this thing, you should get rid of that thing. You will thank them once you're out on the trail, hiking up and over all those steep mountains. Number 4, get clear on why you are through hiking the trail. Odds are you're giving up a lot to be out there. Possibly your job, possibly your apartment, possibly a relationship, and most definitely a whole lot of money in the bank. You don't want those things to go to waste. And also, odds are you've probably spent months or years planning for this hike. There are going to be hard times out on trail. Some days are going to suck. Some nights are going to suck. Sometimes it's going to be cold. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be sweltering hot. You're going to be sweaty and sticky and dirty, and there's going to be bugs, and they're going to be biting you, and things are going to get rough sometimes. Like, maybe you're going to be lonely sometimes. Maybe you're going to be moody sometimes. Maybe you're going to be homesick sometimes. All of those things are natural and normal. But if you can get clear ahead of time on why it is that you're out there, what brought you out on this pilgrimage, this adventure, this journey, what has called you out there, and what is your purpose in being there, I think that can go a long way in helping you get through those hard times and not making you want to quit, especially on a bad day. Zach Badger Davis, who runs the Trek and Backpacker Radio, has a really helpful book called Appalachian Trails. I'll put the link to this down in the show notes, and he talks a lot about this and what the different kind of normal trials are in all the different states of the AT that hikers tend to go through. And he gives some really good questions in there that you're supposed to fill out for yourself and keep notes for ahead of time of, why you're out there, what you're gonna miss out on if you leave the trail early, and that sort of thing. And I found doing that sort of mental preparation ahead of the trail was really helpful for me. It turned out that I personally really didn't need it. I was super nervous and anxious and terrified ahead of actually going to the trail. Once I was out there, I was very at peace. My brain sort of just shut off everything besides trail life while I was out there. I was just so thrilled to be there, and I was lucky. I started the trail with a friend. I got into a trail family very quickly. I felt like I had a really big support system on and off the trail, but still I still had bad days. And I think that I was very lucky in some of those things, and not everyone has those same experiences. So I think that the mental preparation can be just as important as the physical preparation. a lot of people say and really feel that the trail is 80% mental, 20% physical. It's a mental game for a lot of people, and you got to keep your head in the game. So all that mental prep will go a long way. I'll be honest though, I found it much more physically challenging. Personally. The AT is so physically hard sometimes. I mean, you have your more chill spots, of course, like the mid-Atlantic, but there are some spots on the trail where it's just like, good God, do we really have to go straight up another mountain? I know, it's East Coast mountains. They seem more mellow, right, than, say, Colorado where I live now or West Coast, but you would be surprised. Some of those trails are really tough. But anyway, the point of this one though is mental prep. So do your mental preparation ahead of time and take out your notes and remember all of those things that you thought about ahead of time when you're having a bad day. And finally, number 5, come up with a plan for after you complete your thru hike. A lot of people, myself included, are feeling so high and so good when they finish the trail. It's been such an amazing adventure, amazing experience. And then you get off and you feel lost and you feel tired and you feel depressed. Post-trail depression is very common, very normal, and it really, really, really sucks. I did not have a grand plan for after the trail. I just went back to my parents' house and was like, okay, I'm gonna now fix up my resume. I'm gonna apply to a bunch of jobs out in Colorado, and then I'm gonna move there, which is what I did. So I did have some semblance of a plan, I guess, but I wasn't prepared to have to job search and interview for jobs and live in very gloomy, cloudy Western New York when dealing with such bad post-trail depression. It's a really difficult time for a lot of people. I mean, some people are lucky and they can just go back to their jobs, go back to their husbands or wives, go back to their lives. I was not one of those people. I was living in DC. I knew I didn't want to live in DC anymore. I didn't really have the money to go just move to Colorado without a job. So I was just kind of stuck like in limbo for a while. And in retrospect, I wish I had done more to prepare for after the trail before I started the trail. I should have updated my resume ahead of time, updated my LinkedIn ahead of time, made a list of companies that I wanted to work for in cities that I wanted to live. And I mean, of course, like you can do all of this preparation and still end up having to do the whole job interview thing, whatever, afterwards. But I think that it would have made it easier to be as prepared as possible. And I mean, had I had the option, like, to keep my job afterwards, that would have been amazing. So if you have that option, even if you're kind of sick of the work that you're doing, I think it's a more safe bet to go back to something and then figure out your next move, as opposed to just sort of flailing or drowning after you get off the trail. So that's my advice. Be as prepared as possible for your time afterwards, and also save up some extra money for after the trail. I mean, I still had some money afterwards, but again, not enough to say like move to Colorado without a job or go out and get my own apartment. And I think that having a little more financial security also would have helped my mental state a lot and would have helped me get more of a jump on my life moving forward after the trail, instead of having to just sit around my hometown and, hang out with my parents. Not that there weren't good things about that. I did get to spend a lot of time with family, with my dog nephew, who I love so much. And my parents live out in the country, so I still got to go hiking every day. So it's not like I was in a terrible situation. It could have been much, much worse, but it was just, it's hard when you go from living an adult life to living with your parents in your 30s, or probably 20s or 40s or 50s or whatever. So yes, be prepared for after the trail before you start. So yeah, those are my 5 tips for things that you should do before you start your thru hike. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are a thru hiker and you have other suggestions on what people should do before they start, drop those in the comments. If you're planning a thru hike and you have any questions about it, drop those in the comments. I always love hearing from you guys. Give me a like on this video if you got value from it. Don't forget to subscribe. And as usual, thank you for being here. I always appreciate the support, and I'll talk to you all later.